You are driving home on a gravel road. It's late, 2 in the morning. You take a corner, a little too wide, and your car slides right off the shoulder into a ditch. The engine cuts out. You sit there for a second. You're fine. No scratches. Nothing broken. You get out. The air is cold. You look down a road and you see lights of a town glowing on the horizon. It looks close. You pull out your phone and call your parents. They answer. You tell them you are stuck, but you see town. They say, "Stay put. We are coming to catch you." You say, "No, I'll just start walking towards the light. Meet me on the road." You put the phone to your ear and start walking. 5 minutes went by. You were just talking to your dad about nothing. 10 minutes. The gravel is crunching under your shoes. You can still see the lights ahead. 20 minutes. Your parents reach where you said you were, but they don't see your car. You tell them to flash their headlights. They do. You don't see them. 30 minutes. You're still walking towards that glow. You tell your dad you are leaving the road and crossing a field now, taking a shortcut. 40 minutes. The lights are still there, but you haven't reached the edge of the town yet. 45 minutes. Your parents are getting worried.
It's getting so late.
I know.
But you tell them not to panic. You are almost there. You just have to cross a little fence. 47 minutes. You take a step. Something is wrong. You yelled, "Oh shit!" The line goes completely dead. That was Brandon Swanson, May 14, 2008, 19 years old. That is not a story. That happened. The thing I keep coming back at is the lights. He walked towards a town for 47 minutes, but when investigators tracked his phone later, he was walking in the complete opposite direction. There was no town. There were no lights for miles. So what he was looking at? What he was walking towards for almost an hour? I couldn't sleep. I just need to know what was in that field. I opened 3 tabs. I gave the exact same fact to ChatGPT, Gemini and Claude separately. I asked them the one question no one has ever answered. ChatGPT answered immediately. It said he was looking at a grain elevator, a tall tower used for storing crops. Gemini said the exact same thing, but ChatGPT used one very specific word. It said he was walking towards a red warning light on the top of the tower. Think about that. He grew up around there. He knew what a small town looks like from a distance at night. Soft glow spreading across the horizon. A single red dot in the sky does not look like a town. It just looks like a tower. You don't make that mistake and walk towards it for 47 minutes. Gemini tried a different angle. It brought up something called a fata morgana. It happens when a cold air gets trapped near the ground and acts like a giant mirror. It can actually catch the lights of a real town that is miles away over the horizon. You see a town hanging in the air, but it's just a ghost. Then I read Claude. Claude didn't give me a list of farm buildings. Claude answered the thing I was actually afraid of. He was walking for almost an hour and the lights never shifted. They were real. But Claude pointed out something else. After the crash, his brain was in shock. His spatial reasoning was entirely gone. He was walking towards a red light, but it wasn't a town. It was just a single farm light so far away. He was never going to reach it. He thought he was almost there, but he was walking towards a mirage he couldn't catch. The light wasn't the trap. The light was just a lure. The thing waiting for him in the dark was the river. Now it's time for another question. If the area he walked through was completely empty of buildings and infrastructure, what natural or unmapped fixed light source could sit in the dark rural field and look like a distant town? ChatGPT wouldn't let it go. It just kept repeating the same thing from the last time. The man-made red light. It said if there were no buildings on his path, he must have been looking at a red warning light miles away. But Gemini and Claude went somewhere completely different. They both brought up the ground itself. Gemini talked about the marsh. It said rotten plants near the water creates methane gas. Sometimes that gas catches fire in the dark and glows. It's called a ghost light. But then Gemini walked it right back. It said a gas fire distance around. It wouldn't stay perfectly still for 47 minutes while a guy walked in a straight line towards it. I read Claude. Claude didn't talk about gas or warning lights. Claude talked about the water, the yellow Madison River. When you are standing in a pitch black field, slow moving water acts like a mirror. It catches whatever faint light in the sky, starlight, the glow of a highway 10 miles away. It pulls that light down and spread it across the surface. If you are freezing and lost and desperate to find a town, flat glow spreading across the dark looks exactly like streetlights over the next hill. He wasn't walking towards a town, he was walking towards the river. He saw the water glowing and he thought it was safety. But that still doesn't explain the end. He was talking to his dad. He was completely calm. He said he just had to cross a little fence. If he slipped in the mud, he would have dropped the phone, but the call wouldn't necessarily end. Instead, he just yelled one thing and the line went instantly dead. What exactly was waiting at the edge of that water? Time for our next question. If he was standing at the edge of the water in pitch black, thinking he was looking at a fence, what exactly happened in that single second to make him yell and phone to die immediately? So this time the ChatGPT gave us the honest answer. Probably a misstep at the riverbank or nearby terrain, but the exact cause of a yell and the dead call is unknown, and that's pretty right. And then the Gemini talked about the illusion. In total darkness, the human brain tries to make sense of visual noise. Brandon was legally blind in one eye and not wearing his glasses. So in short, the Gemini said the Brandon sees something that was not even there. Now Claude is completely different. He did not see a physical fence in absolute darkness. A wired fence is invisible. The red warning light from the Taunton Green elevator was miles away, but it was catching the surface of a moving water below from his angle at the top of the bank. That thin, glowing red line of reflection looked exactly like a wired fence stretched across the ground. He didn't step over a fence. He stepped into empty air. Did he even know what went wrong? They bought in dogs. They flew helicopters. They dug that river for 120 days. If he fell in right there, where did he go?